Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. We're going to get started in about 1 minute.
Have a nice angelic background here from the sun.
Get that morning sun.
Exactly.
And see some more people trickling in. I think we can go ahead and get started. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for our webinar, Unlock Lightning Fast Reporting and Analytics in Dynamics 365 Business Central with Cosmos. My name is Christine Casciato and I work at Greyvoc. For those that are unfamiliar with Greyvoc, we are a 31-year-old technology consulting company and a Microsoft Solutions partner. We help businesses implement and support their business applications, such as ERP systems, CRMs, intranets, and more. We also help businesses with their cybersecurity, information technology, website development, and digital marketing. Today, we're joined with our partners at Cosmos, which is a cloud-native reporting platform built exclusively for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. We're going to see a demo of how Cosmos works within Business Central and how you can get started with dozens of pre-built reports today. We'll have a live Q&A at the end, so if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to add them to the Q&A or the comment section. And with that being said, I'm going to pass this over to Andrew Pearson, who serves as a senior channel manager at Cosmos. Andrew, the screen is yours.
All right. Thanks so much for the introduction, Christine. I appreciate that. I'm really happy to be here. I appreciate you and the Gravoc team for the hard work to make this happen, for sure. Also, big thanks to those folks who have joined live today and those who will be watching the recording. I look forward to showing you all Cosmos and how to unlock lightning fast reporting in Business Central. The idea today is to start with a quick PowerPoint. I'm not death by PowerPoint, just to set things up and then quickly dive into Cosmos, and we'll, hopefully have enough time at the end for some Q&A. But to that end, I'll kind of dive right in. I'm going to turn off my camera here just to give all the processing power to the share screen because sometimes it can lag. But thanks to everyone for joining. All right, so the way that I like to describe Cosmos is that we are the first and only fully cloud-based reporting and analytics platform that was born in the cloud and built specifically for Business Central Cloud. That'll be a common theme throughout. We built this specifically to augment your current processes when it comes to using cloud tools, right? Business Central's cloud, you want to have, ancillary tools that are also cloud. Moving through this, today's agenda is really quick, right? We'll talk a little bit about us as a company over here at Cosmos to set things up. We'll go through a few core areas of Cosmos that we'll be spending our time in today during our solutions overview. Do want to mention our promotion announcement towards the end that we made with Greyvoc, and then we'll have that Q&A. But to kick things off about us, we have a pretty cool story over here, right? So myself and everyone over here at Cosmos has been working specifically in reporting and analytics for Dynamics for decades across the board, right? We started with Nav and GP and the legacy tools, now with Business Central. That's what our focus is on. But the story is we were actually all working together at a former reporting tool, right? And so Business Central came out during that time. And we realized that there was a gap, right? There's the gap of there wasn't anything specifically built for a cloud ERP like Business Central when it comes to reporting. So we ended up going our own ways, right? We all did different things, but then we got the gang back together and we realized there still wasn't anything out there built specifically for BC. That's where Cosmos was born. We wanted to build something that was incredibly performant, right? Lightning fast reporting runs and something that's takes a modern approach to reporting with a data warehouse as well as, that ease of use factor. We want to build this specifically for business users so they can actually, see this as approachable and be able to build your own reports. Okay, so that's our story. And I was talking about performance. I have a slide dedicated to this, and we're proud of it, right? We're at lightning fast. We've actually benchmarked Cosmos reports at running 48 times faster on average than other Excel reporting solutions out there, and we hang our hat on that. Um, Now, here are those core areas that we'll spend today in Cosmos. We're going to start off in the portal. Okay, think of this as like your command center, right? You log in for the day. This is where you do everything when it comes to reporting and analytics, your whole processes. You'll do things like launch Excel from here to build your reports. You're going to run your reports from the portal, manage your users, roles, and permissions directly from here, and schedule reports to run and distribute, throughout your organization. You do everything here in one place, which was by design, right? You don't want to have to go to many different places to access Power BI dashboards and then Excel reports. It's all in one place. Now, I'm going to use what's called the report editor to build a report here in a moment. It is how it sounds, right? It's what we're going to use directly inside that familiar and flexible environment of Excel. We're never going away from Excel when it comes to row and column formatted reports, for your financials. It is the tool out there to do that. One of the cool parts about Cosmos is we're a conduit, right, inside of Excel to all of your Business Central data, whether it's custom tables and fields, your native Business Central tables and fields, per tenant extensions. Everything is available in Cosmos from day one, and we've made it more of a point and click design experience, as you'll see here in a moment. So that's what I'm going to use to build a report. Second to that, and something that we love to integrate with is Microsoft's Power BI. Okay, so this isn't a competitor to Excel in that type of reporting. Excel is wonderful for that row and column formatted reports, your board ready financials. Power BI is awesome for like KPIs and trends and dashboards. So we've actually built a two-way integration with Power BI. We're delivering those same data sets into Power BI, the relational data sets, which is what Power BI loves to ingest. So from day one, we're eliminating all of the technical complexities. You're dragging and dropping and building out some really cool dashboards. And then we're also delivering those dashboards back into the Cosmos portal, right? Again, so you can have everything all in one place. So if that's interesting to you, we'll show that here in a moment. But we have those two integrations, those two front-end reporting layers. Now, last but not least, the Cosmos data engine. This is what's behind the scenes and what really drives the performance of Cosmos, as well as what makes it really easy to use, right? We clean and organize and optimize all of your BC data. You don't have to be a Business Central database expert, right? To build reports. And this is just really what runs Cosmos on the back end. It's our cloud data warehouse up in Azure, which we'll dive into towards the end of the presentation. Okay. Now, that is it for my PowerPoint right now, and I'm going to go ahead and dive into Cosmos. So, excuse me, I'm going to get out of my PowerPoint, and we're here in Cosmos, right? It was just a one click to get into Cosmos. One of the first things I like to point out is if I click up here, you'll notice that I'm actually logged in using my Microsoft credentials. We're extremely integrated with Microsoft, right? It's a seamless integration. You can use Microsoft's multi-factor authentication. We log in using Entra ID to make things like user administration much easier, but it's also really secure, right? So you're not remembering new passwords and usernames. You're using your Microsoft credentials. Now, this is my command center. This is my landing page, right? Everyone's going to have a personalized landing page, determined by the type of license you have with Cosmos. You'll have your favorites and run history. The two core areas that most folks spend their time in here in their landing page is in the report section, which is our Excel-based reports, right? You'll have access to reports that have been shared with you in here in your library, and you'll also be able to toggle over into Power BI to access any of your Power BI dashboards. So as you can see here, we have like our two core areas. Here's all of my reports for Excel. I can launch any of these directly from the portal to run them and get my fresh, clean data in my reports. And then we also have Power BI integration, right? This is where you're building dashboards in Power BI and sending them directly back into the portal here, and you have access to those as well. Now, what you'll notice, the reality is that my report library is pretty busy, right? What you'll find is with Cosmos, it's easy to pick up and it's approachable. You'll be reporting off of operational data, APAR, and inventory sales, if that's what you're using, as well as financials. You'll have a big library of reports, or at least that's the hope. One of the cool parts about the new portal here is that you can actually favorite your most frequently used reports and dashboards, right? And they'll show up in your favorites right here off of your landing page. So you can just go ahead and log in the morning. You don't have to sift through all of your reports or go into folders and things like that. You can simply just launch them directly from here. Now below this, we have what is called run history. Now this is cool because as you're running your reports, you'll actually have cached versions of your reports down here. That means that you can just launch these reports directly from here. If someone asks you, hey, where did you get those numbers in the report or anything like that? You'll have sort of like your audit history here. You can run these reports or just launch them directly from your run history. These only stay in here for a couple weeks, things like that. But yeah, that's kind of your command center here. Now, I'm going to go back into my report section, right? And I want to talk about sort of like security, right? That's a huge part of this, right? Because we have access to a lot of different reports. It's not a company-wide free-for-all, right? So you can see I have a huge library of reports in here. One of the cool parts about Cosmos is we put security in every different layer, right? Starting off with like your user type, right? So we have users, roles, and permissions here just in our admin section. It's often overlooked, but to be able to manage this directly from a portal is really, really convenient. We have two different types of licensing for Cosmos. We have light users and we have full users. Light users can only see reports that have been shared with them. They can run those reports from the portal. They can toggle on filters within those reports, and they can also drill into the transactional detail from Business Central. Now, full users right here, they can do anything within Cosmos, okay? But namely, they can get to the data and they can build things out in both Excel and Power BI. Now, you can simply manage that security right here by checking boxes, right? So giving people different roles and permissions that way. All right. In addition to that, we have security from a report level. Okay. So you're building reports. Let's just say I've just built this accounts payable detail by company. I can come in here and give different permissions to folks who have licensing. All right. So at this point, I just built the report. Of course, I can see the report, but none of these folks can see the report either. But this is where I can give them permissions. I can say, all right, Aaliyah, I want you to be able to run the report, but I don't want you to be able to modify this report. But Jane, maybe I want to give her run and edit access if she has a full license. So there's a lot of different ways you can put security around this from a report level. And in addition to that, we have folder level security, right? So just you can see, you can have folder structures. You can really consolidate your reports. Maybe you put all of your sales reports in here, your finance reports in here, just to clean it up a bit. But I can do permissions around this as well. So I can give folks no access to this. I can give them, the ability to get into this and run reports, or I can give them the ability to edit, okay? Now, in addition to that, we also have row level security. Now, this was a customer request, across the board that we built into our new platform. This area just gives you that even deeper level of security within a report. So at the data level, for example, if you have, a report that's by department and you have 10 different departments, it's an income statement, but you want just, somebody to be able to see their numbers within their department code and things like that. You can really lock down who can see what within the report. So a lot of our customers are using that as well. So just wanted to point out lots of different ways that you can put security around your Cosmos portal. Now, if I get back into my report section here, what I kind of want to talk about first is as part of our 25-minute onboarding with Cosmos, that's because we're purpose-built for Business Central, you'll have access to about 36 pre-built reports. And you can go up here into your gallery. All of these will be available to you, again, from day one, right? It gives you a huge head start, and they span everything from accounts payable, AP, AR, sales, inventory, core financials, purchasing. And again, as soon as you're onboarded in 25 minutes, you can begin running these. These are pre-built reports. They will work against your Business Central from day one. It's a huge head start, like I mentioned, a jumping off point, but you can modify any of these templates as well, okay? It's like I refer to as icing on the cake to have pre-built reports, but you can, pop in here. Maybe this accounts payable detail by company is 95% of what I need. You can go ahead and edit the report template and drop in a column, put in the company's phone numbers so my AR person can call down, that type of thing. Okay. The real value, though, is being able to ad hoc report, build anything that you want to off of any of your, data in here. But I always like to kind of show these, off the bat as part of that 25-minute onboarding. Now, I want to take you through like two different types of, journeys, right? The first one's going to be more of that light user experience where I've logged in for the day. Maybe I have a meeting later and I need to run some reports and get my data to bring to a meeting. The second one's going to be a full user experience where I'm actually building out a report. So as I mentioned, I'm going to toggle back to my homepage. I've favorited some of my reports. These are the ones that I log in the morning and I need to run. Let's pick on this income statement by company, right? And I'll go ahead and run this from the portal. And when I click the run button here, you'll notice it pulls up in my report runs. The first thing to note here is that when I run this report, we're running this in the cloud, okay? That was by design. That's something that we wanted to build into this platform, is that you can run 4, 5, 6, 7 different reports simultaneously. They'll all run concurrently at the same time. We're not using Excel to run the reports. That really deteriorates report run performance. While you're building your reports in Excel, you're running them in the cloud. So as you can see here with this income statement by company, I have a date range filter built into it, right? And I'll show you how to build those into reports in a moment. But if you have, a filter by dimension or department or whatever it might be, those will stack up down here so your users can toggle on those. I'm just going to go ahead and run this for the month of June 2024 and hit run report. Now, in the back end, we're running this up in the cloud, and it will render up in a new sheet in Excel Online in just a second here. And that's where we'll be able to kind of begin that journey of a light user experience. And once that completes here, we'll be able to talk about like report level security as well as, or not report level security, report level drill down as well as transactional level drill down. Okay. So I've just run this report. Here is my nice little clean income statement by company. I always like to mention this is just one version of a million different ways you can set this up, right? That's the beauty of being in Excel and having a tool like Cosmos. You can set this up, any way you want. In this case, we're pulling in the account category from BC, the account name, number, our two companies within Business Central. These could be departments. It could be anything you want. We have our totals. Few different sections for our income statement down to net income. It's not groundbreaking, but again, just one version of a million different ways you can set this up. This is more detailed. All of my accounts are listed out. You can group these, you can have hierarchies, do anything you need to do. But the idea here is that I just ran this report, right? And maybe I'm looking through this and I notice this number's a little high or something like that, right? We've never sold that much for the month of June out of my Canada company for sales foreign. Now, one thing that we wanted to build in was the ability to really have visibility into the plumbing of the report, right? Sometimes it's tough to tell, hey, is this report pulling in the right numbers and things like that? Well, what we have over here is that report level drill down. You can open up your task pane here, and this gives you visibility into the plumbing. Okay, so because that number is sticking out to me, what I can check on is, how's the report pulling? It's summing up my amounts from my GL transactions table. I've reversed the signs because these are my income accounts up here. And then I can drop down my filters, right? It's a little bit grayed out for you, but what it's telling me is that the GL account number I'm pulling from is 44200, which checks out. The company that I'm pulling on is Cosmos Canada. All looks good there. And then I'm pulling in information for the month of June 2024. So everything's set and ready for my report. It all looks good here, but I need to drill down a little bit deeper, right? Because it's still not passing the eye test. So what I can do is go up into viewing and I can hit drill down. Okay. So when I hit drill down here, what it's going to do is pull back everything inside of Business Central, a comprehensive view of what makes up these sum totals, which is important. And it's something that we also, wanted to do by design, is that these numbers can be coming from many, many different areas inside of Business Central. And we wanted to make sure that you had access to all of that. Okay. So here is my drill down. I'm going to go ahead and just insert a quick table just to make it look a little bit cleaner. But as you can see, you'll have access to everything in Business Central up across the top in the headers that makes up those totals. Everything can be filtered, right? We're ultimately in Excel, so if columns G, H, and I don't make sense for my analysis, I can hide these, take them away, do whatever I need to do. I can grab all of this, throw it into a pivot table if that's how I like to analyze my numbers. But the idea here is that, hey man, that number looked really high. So maybe I, filter off my amounts. I find that somebody double entry to GL, or there's just an extra zero at the end of one of the entries, whatever it might be. I can use any of these areas, right? Maybe the entry number, right? Because I need to go back to that entry. I can copy and paste that. Business Central will be right in the next tab over next to this drill down. I can drop it into Business Central. It'll take me directly to where I need to make any changes. Okay, so that's the idea there. You have those two levels of drill down, very comprehensive view of everything that makes up that total in here, as well as that report level drill down that gives you access to, hey, what's going on in the plumbing of the report. Okay, now I'm going to go back into my portal. Okay, so that was my light user experience. And one of the things that a lot of our customers use on a daily basis is the ability to schedule reports to run and distribute automatically through, your organization. Okay. So if I have just built one of these reports and I come over here to my scheduled jobs here, this gives me the ability to schedule reports to run and distribute. I can give it a name, like a specific job title, like month end financials, right? And I can choose specific days of the week that I want this to send out. I can choose specific times. Since this is month-end financials, I can go to monthly and I can choose last day of the month. So there's a lot of different ways you can send these out. And something to note here is I can schedule reports, right, to run and distribute. They're on a schedule. They'll go out when I tell it to. But we also have a couple different other ways to send reports. The first being batch scheduling, right? So this kind of harkens back to that example I mentioned before, where it's like, hey, you know what? I have 12 different departments, but I don't want each department head to be able to see, each department's income statement. So you can have it scheduled. So one report goes out to, Aaliyah at department head A, and the second report goes out to Brian over at department head B, that type of scheduling. And then you can also manually release these because, sometimes you don't close the books on the last day of the month of every month, right? So you can manually kind of release these by just hitting the play button here, and it'll send out when you're ready. Okay. Now that's the scheduling piece. Always like to mention that it's really important to be able to, send these out to different folks. What's nice is that, if you're Cosmos licensed, you'll be able to run those reports and drill down and, toggle on those filters, but you can also send these reports outside of your organization or to folks who don't even have Cosmos licensing. They'll still get that email and they'll get a copy of the Excel report so that they can just see the numbers. Okay. They won't be able to drill down or anything like that, but you can share reports with anyone. All right. So that's your light user experience. Talked about scheduling there. Now I want to talk about sort of, building a report from scratch. As you can see, I can have different list views or grid views in here, whatever your preference is. I kind of like my list view here. But what you can do is you can launch reports from here. So if I wanted to build a finance report, I can simply click into my finance folder and I can click new. Okay. Now this is where I can give my report a name. Maybe I'll do a different iteration of an income statement. So like monthly income statement by company, something like that, right? And I can go ahead and create this report. What this is going to do is it's going to spin up a blank sheet up in Excel Online. This also works in Excel Desktop as well. Today, I'm just going to use Excel Online. And now this is where I can start, laying out my template, how I want my report to look. Remember, this is completely from scratch, right? So once you're finished building this report, it will be a living, breathing document report in your Cosmos library so that you can refresh it. It's dynamic. But I'm going to go ahead and give it a title, monthly income statement by company. Okay. Oh, let's go company here. And then I'm going to pull in some information. So maybe my GL account numbers, right? Maybe I want to pull in the names of those accounts. We'll do, let's see, category from Business Central. And then we'll do, if I could type today, and then subcategory. And then finally, let's pull in the months. I want my months going out across the top. Okay. Now, this is where I can format to my heart's content. Again, that's the great part about being inside of Excel. I can give it a nice little, header here. I can drop in my company logo, do conditional formatting. I can make it look as nice as I want. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit for you today and give myself some space. Okay. So here's my template. This is how I want my report to be set up. Now, what I'm going to use is that report editor, the Cosmos report editor. It's bolted right here into the top of your Excel instance, and I can open up my task pane. Now, the first thing to note here is that in my task pane here, we have about 8 different Cosmos operators, if you will, right? Now, the specific here is that, no matter whether it's a financial report that I'm building right now, or it's an operational report, like sales report, manufacturing, jobs, projects, whatever it might be, you're using these same tools the same ways, right? The same methodology, the same sequence of these tools to build the report. That really lowers the learning curve, and we did that by design to be able to, make this approachable for the business users. You don't have to learn specific tools to build out a specific report and then a whole another tool for another one. All of these tools work the same way. Now, this isn't meant to be a full training exercise, but I always like to point out, if it's interesting to you, you can go to our website, right? We have a full training video database where you can poke through these and see videos on everything to do in Cosmos. In addition to that, we have a searchable knowledge base that we put a lot of time and effort into for on-demand training, right? How do I group within my reports? It'll pull back a nice little article with a video walkthrough, as well as step-by-step follow the bouncing ball instructions. Okay, so there's, a lot of different resources and on-demand training for Cosmos. Now, let's get back into our report template and start building this out. The first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to build in a report option, okay? And that's what, my users can toggle on when they run the report to filter off different information. I'm going to go ahead and click New. And the first thing to note is that, how nice and clean the data is, right? That's the beauty of that data warehouse structure, right? It allows me to do things like type in, maybe I want to put in a year filter. I can type in year, and it's going to pull back my date table. You can type to find anything within Cosmos. You don't have to sort through thousands of Business Central tables. I think it's like 1,700 tables, 53,000 fields. Everything's nice and clean in here. I can drop down the date. I can just drop in my year, and then I'll put in a default date of 2025. We can always toggle on that when I run the report. Okay, that's it. You just rinse and repeat. If I wanted to put in options for like dimension or department or whatever it might be, I just click New, I type to find it, drop it in, everything plumbs up automatically. Okay, so we made that process really easy to put in those report options. Now, I'm just going to go down here and use what's called sheet lists. Okay, this isn't a requirement for every report, but I mentioned I wanted to do a different iteration of that income statement that we previously saw, where we had our companies within columns here. What the sheet list is going to do is it's going to allow me to deliver a different company across sheets on the bottom. So I'll have, company A with their income statement, company B with their income statement. That could go for, departments or dimensions, whatever it might be. I'm using company in this case. I'm going to click New Sheet List. I can find company here and just drop in company. Now, one feature that we built in a new release a few months ago was the concept of child sheets. Okay, this was a customer request. What this allows me to do is have like sheet 1 be a summary sheet. Maybe it's all companies on this summary sheet and my income statement. Below that, maybe I do want to split it off by companies. And then below that, maybe I want to do it by location, whatever it might be, right? So they'll kind of parent-child relationship marry up to my summary sheet. That is the concept of child sheets. So just know we do have that functionality. It's like a tree structure or hierarchy, right? Some folks like to look at their data a lot of different ways, and you can do that automatically. In this case, I'm just going to do the one layer of sheets. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And now what I want to do is start pulling in information to my report. So I'll use what's called range lists. Okay, the concept here is pretty straightforward. If I want to deliver data going down across rows into my report, I just simply grab the shape of a row. I click New Range List. What do I want to drop in? My GL account numbers. So I can simply go down to GL transactions, which is where that lives, and I'll scroll down. You can type to find this. I'm going to do it longhand, and I can find GL account numbers. Now, if I click Save here, it's going to drop in my entire chart of accounts, which is great for, trial balances and things like that. You can certainly do that. But for this income statement, I want different sections, right? So I'm going to click filters. I'm just going to add in a new filter, and I'm going to tell Cosmos, hey, when the GL account number is between this range of accounts, that's what I want to bring into this section. I want to bring in my revenue accounts, right? And I'm using the between operator here because if you're adding in new GLs in Business Central, Cosmos will automatically pick those up and deliver them into each of your reports. You don't have to go back in and manually re-enter those in your reports, okay? You can certainly do single accounts and groups of accounts and set it up however you want. In this example, I'm just using the between function. So I'm going to click save here because I want my revenue accounts in my first section. Now, that's my first range list, but I want to deliver data going across the columns. And for that, I want to do my months. Okay, so my months across the top. Simply grab the shape of a column here and I click new. What do I want to find? I want to grab my months. So I can type to find that, drops my date table. I'm going to drop in months of the year and I can take away sorting functionality. It might look a little strange with my months alphabetical across the top, but most of the times you want that sorted by default. I'll go ahead and click save. And we're done with our range list. We'll come back to this section, which will be important in just a moment. But, we want to start delivering information for our GL accounts. We want the name, category, and subcategory in this example. I simply go to field lookups, right? We want to bring in fields for our GL accounts. Now, if you've never used Cosmos in your life, it directs you to the information that you need for your report, right? Just really creating those efficiencies, making it easier to get to the data that you need. I'm going to go ahead and drop down my GL transactions. I'll scroll down and find my GL accounts. And what do I want to drop in? My GL account name, my category from Business Central, and my subcategory. Okay. Now, finally, to finish this up, I'm going to go ahead and use what's called aggregates. I want to sum up the totals or aggregate the totals for each month of the year. I can go ahead and click new, and I can find my GL transactions, and I want to sum up those amounts automatically, right? So I can click sum. I can click save here, and this is where I can start dropping in or formatting this. So total revenue, and I really cannot type today. Total revenue, and then I can use any of my Excel functions that I see fit, right? So I'll use that almighty sum function, right? Because we're not hijacking any of Excel's functionality here. I'm going to just bold this and I'll give it a bottom border for good measure. And then maybe I'll make these dollar signs, but this is where you can drop in like conditional formatting. You can do anything you want. Okay. Now I could redo that process, which just took a couple of minutes, but we've already built in the logic behind this section. So what Cosmos allows you to do, especially, in this instance with an income statement, is be able to copy that and paste it down a few times, right? In this case, I'll just paste it down twice. And now we have a few different sections. Now you can probably tell where I'm going with this. And that's why I mentioned that the range list will become important in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and type in net income here. I'll use that sum function and I'll just add these sections up. But what I want to do now is go ahead and change this as a housekeeping for COGS, right? In this section, instead of revenue, I want to go ahead and make it expenses. Go ahead and make this expenses. And then we need to just adjust my range list, right? So if you remember, this was my initial range list, right? To bring in my GL accounts. My second one was my months across the top. And that's how I'm able to click select and just see where I'm working. But then I copied and pasted it down twice more. Okay, so let me select this area. I don't want to bring in my revenue accounts, right? I want a whole different section with my COGS accounts. I can simply just edit that filter and say, you know what? No more revenue accounts. I want to bring in my COGS accounts or my 50,000s. Okay. Same thing for my last section. I can go ahead and edit this or select it. I'll select that section. I'll edit my filter. I don't want to bring in my revenue accounts again, right? I want to bring in my 60,000s or my expense accounts, and I'll bring it out through the end of my account string. Okay. So now we've had this all set up. I'll just kind of finish this up, bold this, and if I don't have that top and double bottom border, this report doesn't count. But yeah, what I'm doing here is we've completed the report. I'm just going to align these to the left, and we're done with this income statement, right? Now, in a real life example or like situation, I could come up into authoring and I can hit preview. Okay, what preview allows me to do is I can toggle on filters if I want to change this to 2024, whatever it might be. But when I run this preview, Cosmos is actually going to run a finished version of your report in a brand new sheet up in Excel Online or desktop. And what that allows me to do is drag that finished report over to my other monitor, and I can see and make sure that, my company logo is showing up in the right place. Is my formatting coming in how I want it to look and things like that? But I can still be in this area to be able to make any edits that I see fit, right? So it kind of creates that efficiency of not having to, get into a design mode and then to a view mode and back and forth. You have the best of both worlds, okay? Now, since we finished this, I'm going to go ahead and close out of that report, and we're here back in my portal, right? Because this is my finished report. I'm going to check this report into my Cosmos portal or my library, and I can give it a message. You don't have to put in a message, but let's say this is a new version. So use this new version, right? So there's version control, and you're able to see who's, created different reports. I can check it in like that. And as you can see, here's my new version. This is my most recent. It gives you the date and time, so you can have that audit trail, right? And let me get back into my finance reports. Here's that new version of my report. I'll make it a grid view. And I just built this, right? So let's go ahead and run this. I can give my permissions right here, or I can just go ahead and run the report. Over here is my, the filter that I built in, or the report option, right? I just put in that year filter. You can do really cool things like, year over year, quarter by quarter, all kinds of stuff. In this case, I just did a simple year, but let's change that to 2024, and I'll go ahead and run the report. Okay. Again, we're running this report up in the cloud. Should spin up here in just a second, and then we'll have like a different iteration of an income statement in just a few minutes, or that I built in just a few minutes. So here is my new report. It's spinning up here with all my new numbers. I could have used like freeze panes and made this really nice and pretty, but as you can see, I have an income statement with my months across the top. I have my few different sections: revenue, COGS, and expenses down to net income. And I can toggle over to my Cosmos Canada company. Again, could have used freeze panes, but now I have two reports, one for Cosmos USA, one for Cosmos Canada, all within one workbook. Okay. All of this is dynamic. You can drill into any of these numbers. It's going to pull back all of the transactional detail from Business Central, but that's the idea, right? Wanted to just give you a quick kind of, experience when it comes to using Cosmos to get to your data, to pull it into Excel and have that really flexible environment of a dynamic, refreshable report. Okay. So now I have that report living here in my finance folder. Okay. So that's the idea for like a full user experience. And I just built out a finance report from there. Now, I'm going to kind of switch gears, and I'm going to talk about our other integration, and that is, with Power BI. Okay. So if I go to Power BI down here, this is just my, Power BI desktop version here. And what's really important about this and the reason why we've created this integration is that Power BI can become pretty tough to use off the bat, right? So typically you're going up to get data, and you have many different areas to pull from, right? It gives you the ability to pull from tons of different databases, but that's where the journey begins, right? None of that would be a relational database, which, Power BI loves to ingest. You have to create those relations in Cosmos. We've already created our star schema, or the relations between tables and your global dimensions and things like that. All of that's done automatically in Cosmos. So we are eliminating a lot of the technical complexities of like DAX and SQL coding and things like that. We're kind of skipping to the head of the line, because this set of sales data that I've delivered from Cosmos into Power BI, I can simply go drop down sales transactions, and I can start building a dashboard from day one, right? So I can just drop in, hey, I want to see my total sales by my salespeople. Maybe I want to see that in like a donut chart, right? So I can build out a donut chart here. We're just dropping in information into my palette. Maybe I want to see like total sales by the items that we sell or something, right? This would be your data specific to your business from Business Central, but this just gives you an idea of how quick and easy it is to build out a nice little report. Let's drop in total sales there. So we'll drop in total sales. by item category description. And I did that incorrectly. But the idea here is that we are just dropping in information into our palette here directly from your Cosmos data. Maybe this one will work a little bit better. So maybe I want to see total sales by the states that we sell into, and maybe I want to see that in like a map view, right? So again, we're creating like a KPI dashboard for trends. Everything's going to be dynamic. How did we do in Colorado? Things like that. One that's a little bit further along is I just dropped in a text box, put in a title here, added in some slicers, right? So how did we do in February? How's Anton Hayes doing? That's kind of the integration that we have, delivering nice little clean data sets into Power BI so that folks can actually use it, right? Without having to be DAX and SQL experts. Now, you can publish this back up into Power BI online, right? You can share it into different people's workspaces. All of that's completely the same. But if you remember, right, not only are we delivering the data sets to make it drag and drop into Power BI so that you can use it really nice and cleanly, we're logged in using our Microsoft credentials. So what that allows me to do is not only share it to people's workspaces, but also get to those within the Cosmos portal. So if I toggle over to Power BI here, you can see you have access to the workspaces. They're going to determine, through your Microsoft login. And if I go to sales, right, these are my sales dashboards. So maybe I want to run a sales dashboard. I'm sharing my screen today here, showing you how, and it's going to ask me to sign in for the day. But, I'm showing, my Excel dashboards or Excel reports in a meeting, and someone raises their hand and says, hey, can we see that visually, right? You can toggle right over to Power BI here. Everything's all under one hood here, and everything is still completely dynamic, right? So you have your dashboards here readily available, as well as your Excel reports for your row and column formatted reports. The last thing that I'll mention here is that this 52.95 million that it shows in sales, that's going to tie up with whatever's in Excel, right? We're pulling from the same data sets. That's super important. One version of the truth, which is often used in this instance, right? So you won't be in a meeting. Someone says, hey, in Excel, it said 20 million. Why does Power BI say 52 million? It's all going to tie together. Okay, so that's the idea here. You have access to all of your Excel reports here to run them from the portal. You have access to your Power BI dashboards if that's an integration that you choose to use with Cosmos. But if we go to the home page here, I have one, additional place that I want to talk about, and that's the Cosmos Data Engine. This is really important, but I always like to preface this with, not everyone's going to have access to this section, right? Or automation or even admin, right? That's what this is used for, to, lock down different permissions for different folks here within the portal. If I don't want you getting to the data model, I simply just uncheck the box. When that user logs in, they won't even know that this section exists. I do like to mention that. But for those folks who might be in the back end of things using the Cosmos data model, maybe it's someone over at Greybock, maybe it's, the IT person over there or something like that, you'll have access to the Cosmos data engine. And what this is that nice clean data model, right, that you're using for reporting. It allowed me to, type to find and drag and drop in Power BI and point and click in Excel. That's what this area is. We've actually templatized from Business Central because we've been doing this for a really long time. The areas of BC for AP, AR, inventory, sales, GL, and purchasing, right? Because across the board, most folks use those areas the same way. But I did mention this previously, you have access to everything. So if you're an organization that uses an extension to BC, right? Maybe it's manufacturing jobs or projects. All of that's available and easily extensible and modifiable in here. It's all point and click, right? So there's no coding involved back here. But let me check this in, and I'm going to go ahead and edit my data model just to pull this up to show you why it was so easy to report and use Power BI. When I hit edit here, what you'll notice is that in my backend section here, this was what we were reporting off of, right? This is your nice clean data model. Again, that's what allowed me to point and click and drag and drop. But, a lot of times folks want to extend this or expose different tables and fields. So the idea here is I can come into my source tables, right? So this is my reporting data model, what I was using in Excel and Power BI. But let's say someone, wants to report from a different table. I can simply click the plus box here, and maybe my colleagues like, you know what, we need to report from the AAD application table or the ABS container table, so next time I log in, I want to have access to that to report from. Now, as you can see in here, this is Business Central, right? It has thousands of tables and fields, right? And as I scroll down, you see them all. And the idea was that we didn't want to cloud or muddy up the waters here, right? You want to only have reporting tables and fields that you use on a daily basis, right? We're never going to really be using the workflow webhook sub buffer to report from. Now, you certainly could. You just check the box, right, to bring it in. But the idea is we have access to everything, but we don't use everything. But if I wanted to add these top two tables, I simply just click add to selected tables. As you can see over here, now when I log in, I can report from them. And if I click on like the AAD application table, I'm just, as an example, I'm making this up. You can go to fields here, and maybe someone's like, all right, well, I have access to the table, but I want to have access to some fields. You can click the plus button. Maybe I want to report from the app ID field and the contact information field, right? I can add those two selected fields. You can see that they're in here now. And then when I go ahead and check my data model in, it exposes those tables and fields for my end users to be able to use and pull from Business Central. Now, the last area that I want to show you in here, and what made things, again, really kind of easy to use in Excel, is that if I go to my sales transactions table, right? If I go to my sales transactions table in here off my reporting data model, you'll see that it's actually made up of 8 different Business Central tables, right? Across the top here. Now that's important. Again, it allows for you not to have to be a database expert. Know that in every report that you have to build, you need to know, how to link up the return receipt line, the sales credit memo line, sales invoice line to build a serviceable report. All of that's done for you here on the back end in Cosmos. Now, this is all completely modifiable. You can do anything you want to do here. But again, it's just all point and click. We have tons of training on this, and there's folks over at Gravoc that are very well in tune with Business Central, of course, and they can help along with this as well. Okay. But again, just wanted to show you what it's like on the back end of the Cosmos data model here. And, that kind of sums things up, right? We went through pretty much everything here in Cosmos. We started off in the home section, right? You can favorite your the reports and dashboards that you run on a daily basis, right? Just gives you easy access to any of that from your command center. In the report section, you have different ways to look at your reports in your reports library. We talked about all of the different ways you can provide security around this with permissions. We talked about the users, right? 2 different types of users and locking down different parts of the Cosmos platform here. And we talked lastly about the Power BI section, right? With that 2-way integration. So that's pretty much it in terms of Cosmos. Again, this was, your first look into Cosmos. It's an overview. We talked about everything soup to nuts. But yeah, I think now we'll kind of get out of the solution and back into PowerPoint really quickly, and to just talk about a few different housekeeping items and get to Q&A. Okay. And again, we're always happy if things look really great and you want to learn how we can augment your reporting and make things much easier out of Business Central. We're always happy to do a deep dive. Just reach out to your folks over at Gravoc and we can schedule that. But I wanted to finish up here with promo, right? So as we go into the holiday months and the end of the year, we decided we wanted to put together a Q4 promo with the Gravoc team. And so from now until the end of the year, you'd receive 25% off of your first year's annual subscription of Cosmos. And again, that only applies to the annual subscriptions, but wanted to put that out there. We'll, in tandem with the Gravoc team, we'll send out a lot of different, kind of messaging around this and things like that. But just know that we have this. If things look really great, we can schedule a demonstration and see how we can fit there. But lastly, let's open it up for Q&A. I wasn't sure if there's any questions that came into the live chat or anything like that. But Christine, I'll kind of open it up to you.
Yeah, we did get a few. First one is, does Cosmo work with other systems / databases such as Bullhorn?
Yeah, really good question. It looks like that came in from John. So thanks for the question there. The answer to that is yes, absolutely. I've spoken with some folks over at Gravoc, and because Bullhorn is tightly integrated with BC, we have access to anything that you're pulling into BC. So it's, those Bullhorn tables, fields that you're using inside of BC. Cosmos picks those up. You can report off of any and all of that stuff in Excel and Power BI. Yep.
Awesome. Second question, how long does implementation take?
Yeah, great question. So we don't even like to call it an implementation, right? We call it onboarding because it only takes 25 minutes to onboard with us, right? As soon as you're finished with that 25-minute onboarding, you'll have access to those 36 pre-built reports against BC that will work against BC. But yeah, it's 25 minutes to onboard with us. Now, we do have some, training and things like that that you can add on, but for an implementation slash onboarding, 25 minutes.
Awesome. We got one final question. Can I access custom tables, fields, and extensions in Business Central with Cosmos?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's something that I was going to mention here is that, throughout the demonstration that we had, yes, that absolutely. Like any custom tables and fields that maybe your Gravoc team, the consultants build in specific to your business, you'll have access to that stuff. If you use different ISVs that have tables, fields, extensions, right, in Business Central, you have access to that too, like Bullhorn and things like that. So yes, you can have access to anything that's living in BC.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
think that's going to be it for questions. If anyone does have any final questions, feel free to put them in. We can answer those right now.
Yep.
If not, this was very helpful, Andrew. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and as a reminder though, at the end of here, if you're, watching this live or you see this before next week, Microsoft's Community Summit is next week. So if you'll be attending that, please feel free to stop by our booth, our Cosmos booth, which is booth 845, to say hi to myself and the Cosmos team. And in addition, David Laster over at Gravoc, who's Director of Software Solutions. A lot of you may have met him already. Awesome dude. He is also a Microsoft MVP. He'll be in attendance with his team, and he has a lot of really cool sessions, right? So you won't want to miss those. They're always, really informative and great sessions. So he'll be speaking throughout the conference as well. Always wanted to mention that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Andrew. We really appreciate your time. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to answer, take anything offline. You will be getting a recording of this directly after, and then we'll be sending out a follow-up email with that promotion in it.
Awesome.
So thank you, guys.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Christine, there was
Yep.
one last kind of question that came in from John.
Oh, yep.
And he just asked if data doesn't reside in Business Central, but in another system, can we still pull from there? And the answer is yes. And there's a few different ways that we can do that, and we can discuss that on a deeper dive, right? Just again, reach out to Gravoc and we can schedule something. But we have ways to connect to like Azure SQL. We can connect to other Excel sheets and things like that. There's a lot of different ways and things coming down the line that we can talk about. Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you
Well,
again.
yeah, thanks so much for having me, folks. I really appreciate the time to spend with me today. Hope you found it informative and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. And I shall talk to you all soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.